I gotta be honest with you. I'm heavily disappointed that Pacquiao was not fighting Amir Khan because, in a way, even though Amir Khan is known for getting knocked out, and a lot of us expect for Amir Khan to get knocked out by Pacquiao if they do fight, one thing I must say going forward is before we go forward is Aaron is saying that the fight can take place in November. But before we start on T-Street Controversy, this is T-Street Controversy Live. This is a video I was supposed to do yesterday, but right now it's March the 17th, 2017, 8:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I took yesterday off because basically we got a long weekend of boxing ahead of us. Friday's the Mike Conlan fight along with my man Mansour, Travis Kaufman on PBC on Bounce. Then on Top Ranking TV you have the Mike Conlan fight. Then tomorrow, of course, you have Golovkin versus Jacobs, and then pretty much I'm going to be working well into Sunday on all of that stuff. So, since Manny Pacquiao and Amir Khan's not fighting, the reason why Aaron said it's not going down now is because an issue that has that also has happened in the past is when UAE and when they talk about having fights over in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, whenever it's time to start getting serious, Aaron goes to them and say, okay, well, where's all this Arab money? And then they start getting strange with the change. So they were depending on a $38 million. That's the number that's floating around out there for Pacquiao versus Khan to be staged over there. Well, the money fell through once again, which is the reason why the fight has fallen through. So now Pacquiao is left with the fact that this is supposed to be his last year in boxing. They wanted him to fight 4 times this year. He said, nah, fuck that. So now it's going to look like he's going to fight twice this year, in July and in November. In July, they're talking about him fight. Oh, by the way, and it's not guaranteed that this is his last year, by the way. They're going to have Manny Pacquiao fight until he's like 40. So now they're going back, or the rumor or the talks are now they're going to go back to the table with Jeff Horn to try to stage the fight over in Australia, Pacquiao versus Horn. Now, of course, we don't want to see Pacquiao versus Horn, right? But at the same time, if you look at it from a marketing standpoint, and if you look at it from how well Pacquiao was going to be received in that lonely island country over there of Australia, and I'm saying lonely because it's literally all by itself, and you got New Zealand, but whatever the case may be, the fight's going to be a huge, massive fight over there. They'll be able to put it in a stadium, and also somewhere, Jeff Horn should be feeling really good right now because now those people who didn't really know who he was over in Australia are now going to start getting behind him again. Also, what I want to see? I know this is kind of, straight down, too far down the line, but I really would love to see that Mundine Green rematch on that card. That would be crazy, right? You would have to understand Australian boxing to understand what I'm saying. To have Pacquiao versus Horn and Mundine versus Green on that card, that would be crazy. But I'm pretty much sure that that politics is going to get in the way. Now let's cut this shit, man. Listen, Mayweather versus Pacquiao 2. It's like a fucking 10%, maybe less, that fight will ever happen again. Pacquiao, Mayweather can make the same amount of money, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. Maybe I'll say a little less fighting Conor McGregor, just a little less than he would fighting Pacquiao. Because if he fights Pacquiao in a rematch, he can easily clear another, at least $100 million, which is what he'll probably make for the Conor McGregor fight. But the problem is that Mayweather knows that if he fights McGregor, he don't have to go all hard in the gym and everything. And I understand what you may say, but don't think like a female. Don't let this shit go over your head. Follow what I'm saying. Mayweather don't have to have no full training camp for a non-boxer in Conor McGregor. But if he fights Pacquiao, even though he beat Pacquiao, even though he'll probably beat Pacquiao the same way he beat him this time, the first time, he still has to take Pacquiao seriously. You see what I'm saying? So why take that risk when you can fight Conor McGregor and make just about the same amount of money, a 0-0 boxer? So I just don't see that fight, don't get me wrong, it's still out there, but I don't see that shit ever happening again. You want to see a 41-year-old Mayweather versus a 38-year-old, 39-year-old Pacquiao? I want to see that shit, man. Don't get me wrong, of course I do, and I'm going to watch it. It's my job, and, of course I want to see it. But still, that's not the point I'm trying to make. So when it comes to Pacquiao versus Khan, truth be told, I want to see if there's some type of new creative way Amir Khan was going to get knocked out. And also, if Pacquiao didn't knock Amir Khan out, I would have been looking at Pacquiao with the side eye like, yo, bro, you washed up. How you ain't knock Amir Khan out? But one thing about that left hand is no matter who you are, no matter if it knocks you out No matter if it stunned you for a bit, even Floyd Mayweather got it just that one time. That left hand will fuck you up. And Amir Khan with his ever so delicate chin, you know, he's going to end up on the canvas. The guy's an artiste. The guy's an oil painting, you. But, you know, it's like this. This is supposed to be Pacquiao's last year in boxing. It's not his last year in boxing. I say he'll probably fight one more time. I say he'll probably fight in July like they want to. In November, normally Pacquiao usually returns in November anyway. And then he'll probably fight in April again. April is normally Pacquiao's, you know, return time, remember. And May was always Mayweather. You know, so I see Pacquiao fighting in July, then November, and then April or some shit like that. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if them motherfuckers fight until 2020. And I'm a big, huge Emmanuel Dapidran, Pacquiao, Epsom salt bath fan. You know, there's also those talks that the potential fight with Kell Brook was out there. You know, Pacquiao versus Kell Brook, but Kell Brook's got to get first. He's got to make weight. Then he's got to get past Errol Spence. Now, you would be a fool to think that Manny Pacquiao is going to fight Errol Spence. Now, when it comes to Pacquiao versus Keith Thurman, here's the thing. The fight should happen. Keith Thurman has 2 belts. Pacquiao has that 3rd one. You know, and then you have Kell Brook, Errol Spence. You know, if all the stars align, you know, I would love to see Pacquiao versus Thurman on free TV. Now, remember, Arum, who's the promoter of Pacquiao, and Al Heyman have a working relationship. They're all working together, and they've been making plenty of fights as of late. You know, so I'm wondering, you know, Pacquiao versus, put it this way, the only way it would work, honestly, is that it would have to be on CBS. You see what I'm saying? So it would have to be the way they did Thurman versus Porter and Thurman versus Garcia, because you not only have that financial backing from PBC, but they're not supporting all of the bill, but you also have Showtime who's chipping in money, which is the reason why you can get Danny Garcia making $2 million and Keith Thurman making $2 million. So imagine Pacquiao versus Thurman. That's peaking at maybe 8-9 million households, maybe more. Pacquiao versus Thurman, maybe more. You know, but the money has got to be there and the sponsors has got to be there. And so far, we know Pacquiao is marketable, even though, you know, he don't like gay people and he want all drug dealers dead. You know, I think this is a known fact. He just don't like gay people and he has no filter. But, you know, outside of that, if you look at Thurman, he is a free television superstar and he's already doubled down the fact that he doesn't want to fight on pay-per-view. So it all really depends on how you look at it. But I think that it's really time for that fight. I think that it's really time. My bad. I was making sure the weigh-in for Golovkin Jacobs is starting soon. I just want to make sure, you know, that Pacquiao doesn't go out on a low note, even if he goes out losing to you know, to a top fighter like a Terrence Crawford, who should fight, by the way. Now, here's the way I feel about this. If you've noticed, there's been some inconsistencies in Pacquiao's camp. For example, this is just lemon and honey. There's been some inconsistencies in Pacquiao's camp because, from my understanding, remember, everything I talk about in these videos, you can go research that shit yourself. It seems as though Bob Arum somewhat wants to make Pacquiao versus Crawford. But Pacquiao's team, Michael Kuntz, doesn't want to make that fight for some reason. Also, you have some members of Terrence Crawford's team who may be skeptical of if he's ready for Pacquiao just yet. Now, remember, when Pacquiao retires, Terrence Crawford is supposed to be the next in line to passing up the torch. It was supposed to be Timothy Bradley, but, well, we know what's going on with that. So I think that's the fight that they really need to focus on, you know, making. Pacquiao has to fight him before he retires, because one thing about Pacquiao is he really doesn't have any loose ends as far as fighters that he should have fought. And in this point in time, the buzz, you know, and the fan appeal and reception is for him to fight Terrence Crawford before he retires. So if, in a perfect world, perfect world, right? Let's say if Pacquiao fights Jeff Horn in July, right? But don't be surprised if a Keith, listen, I really think that maybe that Keith Thurman fight's going to happen. But let's just say, here's a scenario. Let's say if he fights Jeff Horn in July, right? let's say if he fights Amir Khan in November, right? Because we know he ain't retiring this year. And then let's say in April, he fights a Terrence Crawford or Keith Thurman. And then for his last fight, you know, in November of next year, 2018, he fights a Terrence Crawford or Keith Thurman. That would be in a perfect world, right? In a perfect world. And then maybe in there, you can mix up, you know, a Kell Brook if he wins, because I don't see Pacquiao fighting Errol Spence. If Kell Brook wins, you know, I can see maybe them throwing him in there, and, you know, it would be crazy. And also, I want to see how this $50 million tournament weighs in. You know, even though it's not enough money for Pacquiao, remember, it's a $50 million tournament that has $50 million in total prize money, you know, for both divisions. It's going to be 2 weight divisions. We don't know what those weight divisions is yet. We're getting a little too deep. We're getting a little too deep. But anyway, I don't want to confuse you guys. I'm TstreeT Controversy. This is TstreeT Controversy Live. I cover every single major fight live. I'm sorry about the video color and everything. We're getting things sorted out. I have a studio that's being planned. I already planned it out. You know, so we're going to be doing some major renovations and overhauling in here over the next few months. The only reason why it's not getting done now is because I didn't want to waste any more time not doing any videos and shit like that. So I'm pushing everything back, and plus I needed time to fucking get my shit together and calm down and start living life and, you know, getting on the ball. Please subscribe. I'll link to my social media right down below in the description box. And TstreeT Controversy. This is TstreeT Controversy Live, but FightView360.com.